8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's your story?
What's my story? Oh, that's a great question to start with. Um, I started out as a magician. I think I'll just lead with sort of the thing that people have the most questions about. I really didn't want a 9 to 5, and I also realized that I had no like marketable skills or abilities. I didn't go to college. I just knew that I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I'll tell you, when you tell your parents that at 19 years old that you want to leave college, I mean, I did. I started going to college, but knew very quickly like this wasn't for me. So I wanted to drop out of college to become a professional magician. There was certainly some pushback, certainly some uh, I'll use the word fighting. It was just friction and fighting. And they listen. My older brother went off to college. He finished his degree. He's a sound engineer, works for an international speaker company you would definitely recognize. My mother was an accountant, worked for this big law firm in Providence, very numbers oriented, very straight laced. Go to college, get your degree. My dad was I don't even know. He worked for the government. He designed submarines, nuclear submarines for the Navy, and it's kind of a muddy picture in my mind exactly what he did, but it had something to do with nuclear submarines, and so it was very. I mean, he had multiple degrees, in the sciences and engineering and everything. So when I said I want to be you can see it wasn't just it was like a culture shock for my family. And that made me want to dig my heels in and be successful at that even more. And that's sort of the first chapter of my story, the ups and the downs, the pros and the cons, the rags to riches sort of piece there. But there's also a second part of my story. I don't know, maybe it's the second part of a trilogy. I haven't found out what the third piece is going to be. But when after the magic career had run its course, because it did work, I had struggled for a while. I hooked up with a mentor who taught me the ins and outs of business, because show business is 2 words. Business is the bigger word. Here's a tip already for anybody who wants to get into a business. If you're working on your product and you want it to be perfect, and you're spending so much time, like I was, sitting in my room practicing my card tricks, trying to make my show the best possible show in the world. Well, listen, you're not making any money while you're working on your product. You're not making any impact while you're working on your product. And the best place to work on your product is out in the world. Like, you need to have that real-time feedback, especially as a magician. I needed to know how my jokes were going to land. I needed to know how the tricks were going to look from the stage. And I couldn't do that in my room on my own. So a big shift for me, and one of the biggest aha moments that led to the success of my magic business, was realizing that business is the bigger word of show business. I had the show, it was good enough. I don't want to say you launch something that's 20% done. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in my case, it was get good, then get gigs, and that's how you get great, right? So make it good. I would say if you want to shoot for 80%, shoot for 80%. Don't allow perfectionism to rob you of momentum. Don't allow perfectionism to, in fact, I was just putting this together I worded it in a very specific way. I was putting together a presentation on this. Let's see if I can find out what I said. Perfectionism might just be your brain justifying procrastination, justifying fear of success, or justifying the imposter syndrome. And product development, or in my case, show development, but my show was a product, right? I mean, as entrepreneurs, a service-based business, your service is your product. Product development will expand into the space you give it. If you give it forever, it will take you forever, right? You must have some kind of deadline. So I had to have somebody come along and slap me in the face a little bit. Somebody had to pay him a lot of money to do this, like a business coach sort of thing. But he told me show business is 2 words. Business is the bigger word. You got the show, you need the business. And then he began to teach me marketing. And almost overnight, I went from doing 1 or 2 shows per month at $100 a gig. And I'll tell you, in the New England area where I'm from, that don't pay the bills. Okay. So he went from the very next month after working with him, I did 17 shows that month, which is more than I had done in the previous year combined. The month after that, I almost doubled it to 28 shows that month. And again, all paid gigs. And then every month for the next 8 years, I did between 25 and 30 magic shows on average, without fail, toured the country, paid the bills, and had some really, really fun experiences and great stories to tell. But it was a feeling of living my dream and proving Dad wrong. It was a big part of that. So that's story 1 for me. That's story 1. I think there's maybe a takeaway for anybody in that phase of life where they want to launch. They have a dream, they want to go for it, but they feel like they need to tweak and refine and develop and make it so good and so perfect that it's undeniable. Listen, you get yourself some customers, call it a pilot program, do something on a beta launch, just get something out there into the hands of people who can give you the feedback. That is how you make it great, by delivering it and delivering it and delivering it. Tweak it while people are paying you. How's that? Do the tweaking after they're paying you, because that money on its way in too is going to help you to make it even better for the next group. So that's phase 1. That's story 1. Then I had a kid, and enter story 2.
Wow. Well, let's dive into story 1 a little bit more, actually a lot a bit more, and then let's go to story 2. It kind of seemed like the story started at 19, but what happened before that? Where did this love of showbiz and performance and magic, where did that all come from? Why was that so gripping for you?
Well, I mean, childhood hobby that stuck. You hear a similar story from a lot of magicians. A lot of magicians will say, I was about 10 years old. For my case, I was 10. Some people will say 8. Some people will say 12, whatever. But typically males, young, adolescent, socially awkward. I am off the charts introverted and shy, like diagnosably. And, so nobody would have ever picked that career for me. Nobody who's ever known me would have picked that career, or the one I'm in now, even more so. But what happens is you fall in love with something. And as they say, love is blind, and love is blind for your passions as well. It sneaks up on you. And, I was just reading a magic book. It was left down, my older brother, I got it as a hand-me-down, and I started picking around through some different tricks and realizing that I could do something. Sometimes it didn't even require words or social skills that would force people to be interested. And even right now here in this interview, you said to me, tell me your story. And I said, I started as a magician. Like, magician it's just inherently, whether you like it or don't, it's different than what you run into in most situations. So here's another sort of takeaway for any entrepreneur, right? When people ask me, what do you do? What do you do for a living? And I used to say, I'm a magician. That was enough. I had their attention. I broke the pattern of, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I do this. What do you do? Nice to meet you. And nobody's listening. Nobody cares. You're not, maybe you're passing business cards out at a BNI meeting or some kind of networking meeting or something. And it's just robotic, right? But as soon as I said I'm a magician and not a financial advisor or a Mary Kay consultant like everybody else in the room was, it was an engagement trick, right? I no longer say I'm a magician because I'm not a professional magician anymore. I did that, like I said, for about 9 years. and children and family life and being a father. For me, I made a choice. I know some people can balance and make it work, but I could not be on the road for 300 to 350 days a year and be the type of father that I wanted to be and have the experiences with my children that I wanted to have. Again, maybe it's possible. I don't know. I just made that choice and made a career pivot. Like I said, that's story 2. I don't want to get ahead of myself too much. So I don't say I'm a magician anymore. Instead, I say, well, I'm not a magician. So I'm still getting the same level of interest. And it's almost like another angle. Like, what do you mean not a magician? Like, where is this even coming from? And there's a few different ways and techniques and tactics that I've used to create this, what I call verbal slap. It's a verbal slap in the face to shake them out of the bored routine robot mode to the moment when they might actually engage with you and hear your story and hear what you have to offer them that might make them interested, right? But you can't cut through that robot brain unless you give them a little verbal slap real quick. So, some people I've used, what do you do for a living? Well, you mean in addition to being an international bodybuilding champion? Obviously. Now, I know you can't see my whole frame here, but I am very thin and unmuscular. So that's way obvious that I'm not an international bodybuilding champion. So the social awkward, all the stereotypes ring true for me. Small in stature as well. So, you just say something to shake the conversation out of its boring routine so that you can get through to their conscious awareness so they can make a decision whether they're interested in what you have to offer versus just being tuned out and trying to tell you the whole time what they want to sell you, right? So little tip there on the verbal slap. But how did it happen? Happened with just a childhood hobby that stuck and found out that it was interesting and gave me a tool to connect with other human beings and never stopped.
Why was it so important for you to have the tool to be able to connect with other human beings?
Well, I feel that there is nothing more powerful on this earth than the power of human connection. I think if you want to move mountains, you have to be able to move people. And if you want to move people, you've got to be able to connect with them on some level. I was speaking to one of my clients today, and he was saying, Tim, it's not the Dale Carnegie tricks. It's not the influence brain hacks and stuff that's going to move people to action. He says it's how well you can connect with them. Influence is something that comes, and influence, I believe, is something that everybody in some area of their life is going to want to lean on at some point. Me as a parent, I want to be able to influence my children to lead a healthy lifestyle, stay away from drugs and alcohol. And, what's going to do that? Is it me saying the right words in the right way at the right time to have a neuro-linguistic programming mind hack to make them not want to? No, it's going to be the connection that we have. I believe, my wife has been a teacher, and when she was teaching, it's, if I want to influence these children to care about education, what's that going to come from? It's not going to come from punishments. It's not going to come, it's going to come from the connection that I make with them. Same goes for sales. I mean, look at Apple and the connection that they have with their raving fans. It's cult-like, but there is a connection between the organization and the organization's fans, friends, and followers. So, what drives influence is who you are as a human being. It is not your title or your position. If you're trying to be a boss at in a company, in your day job, let's say, or even as an entrepreneur, you've got these people that you lead. it's not just because I'm the boss and I write the check, you have to do what I tell you to do. You're going to run into turnover problems. You're going to run into compliance issues. You're going to run into infighting, backstabbing. There's going to be a whole bunch of culture problems. How you motivate people, how you inspire people, how you influence people, it's comes down to this human connection component. So it's not title. It's not how many Facebook followers you have. It's not the number of, that's not what makes you an influencer. It is the humanity that you bring to your interactions. So that is the practical reason why human connection was important to me. It was important to make a connection with another human being through the vehicle of magic, because we shared that love of the sense of wonder. There was, I never did magic in a way that was like, look what I just did. I did this amazing thing and you can't do it and you have no idea how I did it and I'm so awesome. It was always like, whoa, look at what just happened. This is so cool. Like just total childlike wonder. And that is a thing, that is an idea, that is a concept, that is a human thing that allowed me to connect with audiences and help audiences connect with one another while I'm on the stage and they're in the audience. So practical human connection is important on a practical level. But let's go back to what matters in life. At the end of our lives, we're not going to look back. We're not going to be on our deathbed, right? And we're not going to say to somebody, "Hey, listen, it's getting harder to breathe. My time is running out. Can you please go back to my office and grab my college degree? It's hanging on the wall. I just want to hug it one last time." It's not going to be our accomplishments in those final moments of life that are going to be meaningful. They're going to be important to us as who we are, but what really is going to matter is not the box that I checked, that I said I did that thing. We're not going to say, can you please, look, it's getting dark. The time is running out. Can you please wheel me into the garage so I can sit in my dream car for just one last minute? I just want to sit in my beautiful dream car. It's not going to be our possessions that matter in those final moments. And in the final moments, if you think about it, they say hindsight is 20/20. When you're looking back on something, the clarity that comes. I mean, people talk about a certain piece right before passing. They talk about if they almost drowned or they had this sort of near-death experience. They say there's an incredible piece of being able to look back and have this clarity. The things that matter to them in those moments, and I did a presentation, and this is coming from these stories that I'm telling you. These are coming from one of my audiences who was an organization, a group that provided hospice care. Hospice care, palliative care is the, you're going to die. Let's make it comfortable for you. You've got a couple of weeks. Come hang out with us. We have a nice setup. It's going to be, we're going to be able to take care of you here and make it feel like home and, bring you to the end of your life with dignity and respect and comfort. That's hospice care. So these people are always right there at human beings' final moments, and they
Right.
talk to them, and they say, nobody ever says that. Nobody ever says that. They say, bring me the people, bring me the relationships, bring me the people that I care about, the people that care about me, bring me the relationships that I've nurtured. Or they're also thinking about the relationships they've neglected. And there may be some regret in those final moments. So when hindsight is crystal clear, if hindsight's 20/20 and these people who have all of life's wisdom summed up in this one moment, and they're saying people matter, relationships and connections matter, then if that's what's going to matter, then shouldn't that be what matters now? I'm a firm believer in that it's not just a practical element or importance to connect with other human beings. I feel like it is sort of a deeper human need. And by human need, I'm going beyond food, water, shelter, that need to connect, to be accepted, to be loved, and to love. There's nothing There's nothing more on this earth that that resonates more deeply with more people. I think I think it's self-evident. What do you think?
I think that I couldn't agree more. You know, I was so fortunate to have been able to grow up close to my grandparents, and my grandma passed away a couple of months ago. And you're right. I mean, she had hospice care, and she suffered from dementia. But even in that state, what she wanted more than anything, and when she got the most animated and the most happy, was when people came to visit her, whether it be people from out of town or people who lived in town and who just came to see her. That made her the happiest. So yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, by the way. Sorry for your loss. And you know, it's a rough thing to go through for sure. You know, when someone is that close to us. And once again, it reiterates and it helps us to treasure more the time and the people that we have. And there's nothing more important. It's nothing more important. So
I agree. And I appreciate that. And you know, I'm really grateful for the time that we did have. So I'm curious to learn, when did you learn all these things? Like when were the turning points in your life that you were like, oh, that's what's important. That's what I care about.
So I have to say, you are one of my favorite interviewers. The reason I'm saying that, I do a lot of these podcasts, man. I do a lot of interviews. I do a lot of radio stuff, do a lot of TV stuff. And it's so cookie cutter 99% of the time. So I just want to take a pause just to acknowledge this is a refreshing interview, and I get to talk about some stuff that I don't normally get to talk about. And you know what you've done is you've brought me into this sort of present moment instead of going through my own routine of I'm doing a podcast interview and here's what I'm going to talk about and blah, blah, blah. So I appreciate that. I thank you for that. And this is a question nobody's ever asked. When did you become aware of these things and how they're important? It's tough to say. It really is tough to say. The one moment that I can point to will come in story 2. But I feel like I need to sort of go back a little bit, address story 2, right? 2007, my daughter was born. And I think that's a moment when you're holding your firstborn child that it felt like a supernatural moment for me. All during my wife's pregnancy, there was a concern. I'm like, I am not connecting to this baby the way that my wife is, already in love with this baby long before even a heartbeat. It was just, she loves this baby. She's prepping everything. She's so excited. Can't wait to meet, you know? So I'm like, I have this dark soul or something. Like, I don't even like, what, aren't you supposed to love your kids? And so, and it never happened until I held my daughter in my arms for the first time and I met her. And it was, you know, I don't want to sit here and start reciting poetry or anything, but you know, that's the only way to describe it. It was supernatural, you know, and everything sort of came at once and it was instant. I will die for you right now. Whatever you need, period, end of sentence. So that was a profound sort of real human connection between my daughter and myself. And like I said, it led me to want to change my career path so I could spend more time and be around and raise and do all those things. So I decided I need to find something that I can leverage my skills in a way that makes more money so that I can continue to provide at this level financially, but less of a time requirement and a travel requirement for me, because I also want to be able to provide as a human father to this baby. So I'm the type of person, Ben, I don't know about you, but I don't like to like reinvent the wheel. So like I said, when I wanted to become a magician and I was frustrated for a while, I hired a business coach. Like I went to somebody who knows what they're doing, has done it before, has the steps and the plan and the tools that he can just say A, B, C, and D, follow the plan, boom, 17 shows the next month. That's my cup of tea right there. So, and I've done this several times throughout, but there was this one guy that I hired, and he was this very almost part business coach, part like really smart business consultant, and part like Yoda. Like he was this really like had he was a weird way of saying things. He didn't speak in the passive voice like Yoda does, but he had like it was just wisdom that he would just everything was this little packet of wisdom. So I paid him a bunch of money. I went to his home in Martha's Vineyard, and of course he picks me up in his Ferrari, and he's just isn't it funny? Like the people who are the wealthiest sometimes they are like they're really smart. I don't know if that makes sense, but maybe that's another conversation for another day. So I have this conversation. So here's where I'm going. I have this conversation with him. I say, listen, I gotta make a change. I gotta segue. I have no college degree. I have no work experience other than jobs that I worked at like McDonald's and the mall while I was trying to scrape together my magic business. Nobody's going to hire me for anything. It's not like I can go and make anywhere near what I'm making as a magician at some regular job where I can be local and home. And plus that's 9 to 5 type thing. I don't know what I can do. Besides not only that, but I want my wife to be able to quit her job. So we need an extra $50,000 a year to be able to make her quit her job and this and that. And what do I do? And he says, Tim, take a breath. You have time. I'm like, no, the baby's here. Like you don't understand. The baby is here right now. And he's like, you have time. And he said it with such a peace and a calming that it's one of the moments that I go back to a lot when I feel like I got to get this stuff done. I got to get this thing. And why am I not there yet? And why don't I have this thing yet? And why does my website look like this still? And why does my thing, and I can't get that thing to, you have time. All right. And so it was comforting, right? But he also said this, knowing what I know about you, because I worked with him for a little while, and then we had this day thing in Martha's Vineyard. He's like, knowing what I know about you, $50,000 in a year. Come on, man. You can do that in a month. You can do that in a month. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, nope. I know you hear the words. I want you to feel the reality that you can do that in a month. I'm like, I can't. I'm not there. I'm nowhere. I'm not there. I can't get my head to $50,000 a month. He said, if you can't get your head there, then you can't get your bank account there. He's like, you've got to get to this place, and I'm going to show you how to do it. And he lays out another plan, right? He lays out this plan for me, and it was a high level plan. It wasn't as A, B, C as this other guy's was, but and it's so important to have that. It's so important to have some kind of proven plan, right? Because we talked about having a desire. When all I wanted to be when I grew up was a magician. Many entrepreneurs have this thing that they want to put out into the world. They have a product, a program, a service, a message, an idea. They want to put it out into the world. They have this desire, a deep desire. Hopefully it's focused and clear. That's another conversation. They just need a plan, right? They just need the steps. And sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And I think the good coaches, the good mentors, the good people in our life give us the information that we don't have. They tell us the things that we need to know. Hey, you know what? You want to do this? This is how you do it. You go here. The great coaches, they give us new goals. So they give us things that we can shoot for that we wouldn't even conceive of shooting for on our own. So good coaches give us good information and new information. Great coaches give us new goals. They raise our game, right? So that's what this guy did to me. He raised my game. He said, instead of this, he's like, I want you to leverage what you do have. You can stand on a stage with a microphone, captivate an audience. Why don't you transition and stop calling yourself a magician and start calling yourself a speaker? Impart some information that you know deeply about, turn it into a presentation, deliver it for organizations, and corporations. Yes, you'll still be doing travel, but he's like, do you know what keynote speakers get paid? I'm like, oh. I mean, occasionally I'll do a magic show and I'll see there's speakers there. And I'm always like, oh man, these people are so boring. And it's PowerPoint, bullet point. It's like, gosh, that's why they brought me in, to entertain the room for like once during this 15-hour event. Like, I'm so sick of bullet points. So he said, yeah, but that person doing the bullet points and being boring probably made $15,000 for that 45 minutes, and I was like, that's like, no, it isn't. He's like, listen, bare minimum speakers are getting paid $5,000. If you don't ask for $5,000 as a keynote speaker, they won't take you serious. It's not about how much you should charge. It's how much they feel like they need to pay. Would you buy a car for $7 and think it was any good? No, there's a number where there's like respectable, and you say, okay, this is going to be a good vehicle, whatever that number is. So in the speaking industry, $5,000 is like, that's entry level. I was like, oh my gosh. Cause I remember I was doing magic shows. I had started doing I was doing a lot of kids' birthday parties for like $250, but I was also doing some, corporate after dinner entertainment and stuff like that. I was getting $750, $1,000, $1,500 at like, that blew my mind. And man, oh man, that number it rocked me. And not every month is $50,000 a month now, but let me tell you, how many of those do you need in a year, to put together a decent year? But when he raised the game, now being able to take a skill that I already had, and my topic now, my speaking topic is called The Magic of Human Connection, Your Advantage in a Digital World. And part of what I was talking to you about earlier is from my message. That's what I speak about, because it is what I believe. So when you ask me, what are these moments when you realize these things are important? How do you realize these things are important? It's having mentors open your eyes and open your mind. It's having life experience, I believe, like holding my daughter, because let me tell you something else that is embarrassing a little bit. And I don't talk about this part of the story a lot. But I made that decision. I wanted to, become a keynote speaker. That was 2007. That's when my daughter was born. I did not do a single keynote speech until 2010, early 2010. Single paid keynote speech. That's because my second daughter was born in 2009. So for 2 years, remember, 2 years, I had fallen into the same trap as I did before, and I was working on my speech. What would I talk about? Let me integrate the magic with the message, and let's get this poem thing that I can do as a closer, and I was working on the speech and working on the product. And for 2 years, guess what? Nothing happened. So then when my second daughter was born and I looked back, and sometimes this is one of the best motivators, when you look back and say, look how much time I've already wasted. I don't want to go another year in the future and look back and say another wasted year. So if you ever feel yourself in a procrastination mode, if you ever feel yourself like you're stuck, mentally fast forward a year in your mind and say, try doing it this way. Fast forward a year in your mind and say, I'm still stuck here. I'm still dealing with these crappy people that I don't want to be dealing with, this crappy job that I hate. I'm still working on this stupid thing that I can't quite get right. I am still stuck. And really put yourself a year in the future and feel that pain associated with another year of failure, another weight of another year of failure. And that's pain is an incredible motivator. Pain is an incredible motivator. So sometimes when I really need a push, I think of a cowboy, how they get the horse to move is with the spurs or a whip. Pain is nature's motivator. The person who finally quits smoking gets sick and tired of it. They feel the pain so deeply. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired all the time. They're sick of waking up and hacking their lungs out every morning. They're sick of wasting all their money on cigarettes. And if they go back in their mind and say, 5 years from now, if I'm still doing this, oh my gosh, there comes a point where the pain, here's a writer downer. If you want to move forward in your business, in your life, if you want to make a positive change, the pain of change has to be worse than the pain of staying the same. I'm sorry, I got that backwards. The pain of staying the same has to be worse than the pain of change. So amplify the pain of staying the same. Go a year in the future, make that pain worse, really feel it. And I know you mentioned Think and Grow Rich earlier before we came on this, and he talks a lot about how to ingrain that and make it become part of your conscious awareness so that it's not just another day to day, and then a whole year goes by. So that was that. Second daughter was born, and there was a kick in the pants that I needed. There was a house that we needed to buy because we had no room in our old house. There was responsibilities. There was pain, and the pain of staying the same, the pain of not changing finally got worse than the pain of change. Went back to that plan, really implemented it with a new desire. And that was, my daughter was born in September. I booked my first gig in November and then delivered it in early 2010. So anyway, that's, I hope that answers the question. I tend to, as a speaker, one of the techniques we use is a little behind the scenes. One of the techniques that we use is called, it's called open loops. I call it a rabbit trail. We make a promise or a point and we say, before I can deliver this, we're going to go over here and talk about something else. It's also really, really cool. And it's a technique. If you're ever responsible for engaging a group of people, you plant a seed, plant a new seed, deliver over here, come back, deliver on this seed. There's another seed that is ready to be harvested over here. You come back and deliver on that. So that's my sorry, not sorry moment for these rabbit trails. It's, hopefully doing some part to keep people's brains engaged and keep this lengthy story somewhat engaging.
Well, rabbit trails are very highly encouraged on the show because there's so much wisdom there, and it gets to a place of such organic, like a super organic tangent that in no other circumstance could we have ever have gotten there besides the one that we've been on. So I love those, and please take us down as many as there are. All right.
No more apologies then. I appreciate that too about this interview.
Hell yeah. So one thing that really piqued my interest, one of the seeds that you planted was when the gentleman picked you up, the second coach, and you were talking about how he was really, really smart. What exactly did you mean by that?
So the wealthiest people that I know are the ones who read the most books. I know this is a cliche, readers are leaders. I like actually how Jim Rohn put it. He said the good stuff in life is on the top shelf and you reach it by standing on the books that you read. He said poor people have huge televisions. Rich people have huge libraries. And literally the richest guy I know, his name is actually Rich. He reads, it's 3 books a week, I believe he reads, but he does it in a way where he's so obsessive about not just acquiring information, but processing it, documenting it, detailing it. So he has an assistant that he's hired full time. He reads a book with a highlighter, and he's got a different notation for different kinds of notes that he wants. Mails the book to his assistant. She transcribes all his notes and then catalogs them in a binder system. So his library, like if I were to spin this camera around, you'd see one of my bookshelves, right? And I have, I don't know, maybe 200 books here. I don't know. His isn't books, it's binders, and each binder is full of books, and his shelf is full of binders. So if he has something that he wants to refresh his mind about or something like that, he'll go, it's almost like a card catalog system, pull down the marketing binder, flip to a certain thing, and he'll just re-engage with the ideas that he knows are directly for him and applicable to him. So he's not just obsessive about reading. 3 books a week is no joke. I did it for 1 year, 52 books. I wanted 52 books in 52 weeks. My first coach taught me to do that. And I ended up doing like 58 books in 52 weeks, but it was hard, really, really hard. There was one book, it was like my 4th weekend or whatever. I picked this 900 page neuroscience like text. And I was like, oh my gosh. But, you did it in 9 days. When you are serious about something, and that's a lot of people, they'll set these goals, but they're not serious about them. They don't, when I talk about desire, I talk about that fervent, like that video on YouTube where the guy's like, holds the coach holds the guy under the water. And, he says, hey, if you want success with the same urgency that you want to breathe, then you come back and talk to me. So it's that kind of desire. You know what I mean? So he has these 3 books a week, and it doesn't happen by accident. All right. He had to intentionally probably learn to speed read, teach himself how to speed read. He had to create the time and the space for that. And he's an independently wealthy, multi-millionaire who runs these businesses and has employees and still finds a way to, and still prioritizes reading. Like, dude, you're there. You've read like, I don't know, 4,000 books, let's say. I don't know how many weeks you've been doing this. Like, come on, this is ridiculous. They say if you read 10 books on a subject, you're an expert. How many books do you need, man? But he just prioritizes the process. And for me, when I committed to it, I learned that it was not necessarily about the information, not about even the brain exercise. It was about a discipline, and it was about having dedicated time to think along with another person via the page, just to think and brainstorm and learn and soak. And even if I forgot, it was still sort of this helpful process. Ben, I'm going to go on a rabbit trail. I want to talk about comedy for a second. I want to talk about comedians. There was a scandal recently with Amy Schumer stealing jokes or something like that. Or Louis C.K. and Dane Cook had this battle going back and forth that somebody's stealing the other person's jokes. And you put the jokes side by side and they look identical. Somebody stole the joke. It's Louis C.K. did it first, documented doing it first. So Dane Cook, but Dane's like, I didn't steal this joke. So there's this phenomenon that goes on in the human brain, and I'm going to butcher the word, but it's something like, it's crypto, but it's where you have something in your brain that was put there by another person or whatever. You don't remember who put that in your brain or where you heard it or where you learned it, but your subconscious sort of bubbles it up to the surface as an aha moment or an idea. I'm really embarrassed that I can't come up with the word. I just saw this like last week. But it's this phenomenon that scientists are well aware of, like, oh yeah, that's a thing the brain does. So it kind of does just soak up information. And then even if you feel like you're not remembering it, because that's what some people say, oh, you read a book that fast, you can't enjoy it. You can't remember it. Well, if you want to enjoy it, you can always slow down if you want, because I also had to learn speed reading for that year. And you have the ability to go fast or slow. It's not like you lose the enjoyment of reading. Wouldn't it be interesting, though, if the process of putting information into the brain, if it just stays in there and your brain chews it all up like a blender and spits it out as an idea that is exactly what you need in exactly that time. And now you're Archimedes jumping out of the bathtub shouting Eureka, because you had this lightning that struck. And I'll tell you, you get out what you put in, right? You put trash into your brain is not going to give you gold, right? It's not going to give you that money-making idea. It's not going to give you the insight or the innovation that you need. So put stuff in that you want to come out, right? Put the good stuff in. So I think that's why. Smart people tend to be smart. That's a bad word. Educated, informed, because there are some people who aren't naturally intelligent or naturally gifted, not genius level IQ, but they're educated, so deeply educated. So maybe that's a better word than smart, is educated. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe the ideas come from the healthy brains that are nurtured.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I love that you're a voracious reader too, because I mean, I can show you my Audible catalog. I love audiobooks, and it's just books and books, hundreds and hundreds of books. And what I try to do is I try to exercise and listen at the same time. So like a lot of biking, a lot of walking. My dog prefers the latter, of course. But all the time, there are situations where I'll read something like a week or two before, and then somebody will ask me something, and I don't know where it comes from, but I'll have this answer, and then it's like, oh wait, that came from that book that I read 2 weeks ago, that if you had asked me to conjure it up a week ago, I probably wouldn't have. But because that question jogged a certain type of memory, then I was like, oh, got it. Yeah,
right.
Here's the answer. So yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
I am going to try to find out what that word is. I'm going to do a quick Google. It didn't come up. Bummer. All right. So how we doing on time? I feel like this has flown, Ben. I feel like this has absolutely flown by.
Yeah, we're rounding the hour mark, so we can start to wind it down. I want to be very respectful of your time. So I guess I have one more question for you.
Sure.
Then we'll say our goodbyes to the lovely people. I'm 24. And the reason I ask is because I wanted to be very specific to the question. But what question should I be asking you, specifically you, that I just wouldn't think to ask?
I think there are some, context dependent, subject matter. They say creativity works best within limitations. It's tough to sit down and say, draw a picture. What about a landscape? Oh, it's got to be a landscape. Okay, now there's limitations. Now I can work with that and come up with something, I guess. So would you care to quantify or put some more context, maybe some more limitations? Is this a life wisdom question sort of thing, which I'm probably not the guy? Is this a business entrepreneurship sort of thing? Is this a, human connection and relationship sort of thing? What's or do you want to leave it open-ended and put the pressure on not pressure, but see what comes of it?
Yeah, definitely the last one.
Okay. Okay. So in my brain, the words popped up. Don't ask me a how-to question. Don't ask me a how-to question. It's easy to think of how-to questions. This sign behind me right now is a business that I run where people ask me how-to questions. How do I get that $10,000 to $15,000 speaking gig? That's easy to ask the how-to questions. The question I think you should ask me is more would it be a why too? Like, why would I do this? These are tough. This is a really tough one, Ben, because I want it to be so good and so spot on, and I feel a responsibility because I see a lot of myself in you just from the short time we've spent together. I also was once 24 years old, so we're like, I mean, no, but I think you should. I think it comes back to patience. I think a lot of people in your situation, it would be asking me questions surrounding the weight. Be patient. To create more of that. Why is that important? Where does that come from? Those types of questions. But I can't put it in a specific phrase for you. I feel like there's some work that your brain might have a lightning bolt moment as well.
Okay, well,
leave that space for that.
Yeah, let's. I'd like to take that suggestion. Why is the patience so important, and why was it so impactful for you?
I think simply because good things take time, and it's harder and harder to believe that in a society, in a culture, in a technological environment where a lot of really great things don't take time. On the surface, it appears that way. So you want to know something? I want to know what that word is. I Google it. That's on the surface level, that's a really cool thing that the answer comes faster. But from a brain perspective, we lose the ability remember I talked earlier about my fascination and love of the sense of wonder. And what I love about magic is I can prove to you that your brain is making mistakes. I can show you something that clearly is physically impossible. It's something floating in the air. Your brain is seeing something wrong. There is something that your brain is missing because your brain is telling you that thing is floating in the air right now. So it forces us to realize our flaws of perception. One of my favorite TED Talks was a girl who said this to the audience. She said, I want you right now to tell me something that you believe that you're wrong about. Give me anything that you believe, but you're wrong about it. Like, I can't think of anything that I'm wrong about. If I knew I was wrong about it, I would change and learn and be like, you know what I mean? Like, there are some things that I do that I know are stupid, but as far as beliefs go, it's really hard to know and to see your blind spots. So wonder, thinking about something, Google searching kind of robs a little bit of that from us. Einstein says this, and I believe there'll never be another human Einstein, never be another person like Einstein for this reason. Einstein just sat and thought about stuff. He pondered, he pontificated, he wondered, he asked and asked and asked again. And he says, I'm not a genius. There's nothing special about me. I'm just perpetually curious. And this is something, once again, where impatience robs us. It's a cool thing. We get the answer now. Great. But we lost that piece of wonder. We lost that piece of not knowing. We lost that acknowledgement of we might be wrong about something and want to question. We lost that brain exercise, but we also lost the gold that would come from that. So I think that's why in that one little case, patience is important, because the good things take time. The meaningful things take time. Human connection, human relationships, there's no shortcut. There may come a time when there is. I mean, Tinder comes to mind as far as developing relationships, meeting people, and swipe. That's fast. But are we trading speed for depth? I think when you ask why patience, it's because we trade speed for depth too easily. So,
well, I also think it creates an environment where we don't get to come up with anything new, or it is not as conducive to come up with something new. I mean, if we ask a question, we get an answer, and it's like, oh, well, that's the right answer. That's the one that I got first. And I feel like a lot of times people just take that as the answer instead of being like, oh, well, what do I think is the answer? Mm-hmm. What do I think about that?
And it isn't just technology per se. There is an educational flaw where we teach to the test and you've got to get the answer. And there is a high value placed on the answer. And, that's counterproductive to thinking in a lot of regards, in a lot of respects. Ben, I just had some gold. It would have been a perfect closing statement. It's fading away from my memory. You had said to me, case in point of nothing new. People aren't innovating or creating. Look at television and movies. How many of them are reboots and redos and sequels? Or if it's new, it's just a cookie cutter template. Here it is, boy meets girl, blah, blah, blah. It's just a regular old. It's very rare to see something new. And why? Maybe movie studios are like, well, this is, we're millions of dollars invested here. We got to know that it's going to work. So the answer, this will work, is costing us something in newness, in variety, in how we think and how we create and how we contribute. And I think, I don't think all hope is lost, but I think all signs point to it's going to get better before it gets worse. So we should be the change that we want to see in the world, right? Gandhi.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Tim, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing this time with me. It's been very special. And I just want to thank you very much.
My pleasure, Ben. And again, I meant what I said earlier about this being a refreshing interview. It was a joy to do. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you. And to everybody who's watching and listening, I want to thank y'all very, very much. Y'all are the reason that I do this. I love y'all very much. Your time is very, very valuable. So thank you for sharing it with us today. Thanks for sticking with us to the end. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again, Tim. And I will see y'all on the next episode. Take care now.